My name is Ali Official. I'm a content creator and comedian, and I suffer from clinical depression. I wouldn't laugh like I used to. I wouldn't smile like I used to. I was having panic attacks. I woke up and I couldn't breathe. Ali, you're doing therapy, you're seeking counseling, you're seeing a psychologist for what? They prescribed me with antidepressants. There are so many people that will question your spirituality. They will question whether you are possessed. Oh my God, but you're always so happy and you're always busting jokes. You're the comedian, dude. How can you be depressed? Everyone's talking about mental health, but no one knows how to have the conversation of mental health. A few years ago, something happened which was easily the most emotional point of my life. I remember, let me take some water. Depression has many professional opinions. It's often characterized as a chemical imbalance in the brain, a reduction of serotonin in the nerve cells. Some say this is due to emotional tendencies. Some say this is due to environmental factors. Some say it's due to genetic vulnerabilities. Now, I'm not a medical expert. I don't know the cause root of the diagnosis, but I just happen to be someone who suffers from the illness. And if I had to explain what I go through in loose terms, depression is literally the worst day of your life, played again and again and again and again. It doesn't stop. It's this feeling that you can't deny or describe. It's almost like this dark cloud that's always hovering over you, and it causes you to feel deeply sad, deeply unhappy, insecure, worthless, disinterested, disengaged, and just numb from everything you've ever known. I grew up in Devon and I moved to London for my degree. I was the first sibling in my family to move out of home and to go to university, and that first year was just so busy. It was just such a huge transitional switch. There was almost no time to digest it. You know, like as a student, getting used to student life, moving out, new environment, new friends, new lifestyle, new routine. It was just so fast. So the first year, I don't really think I had really time to internalize anything. But then I remember the second year, I started to feel different. I started to feel not me. Like just little things started to change in my mind. I think things like my favorite meal wouldn't taste the same anymore. You know, conversations with my friends wouldn't give me the same joy anymore. I wouldn't laugh like I used to. I wouldn't smile like I used to. And I think generally I just felt a little bit lost and confused. But again, I never questioned it. I never thought anything was wrong with me. I always just used to put these thoughts at the back of my mind. I thought, hey Ali, like, this is just life. It's nothing. Like, don't worry about it. But as the years went on, progressively, these little weird mixed feelings started to intensify and amplify, to the point where like I felt like I lost a part of me. I felt like I was changing as a person. I didn't want to do certain things. I felt like there were these huge contradictions in me. I'd either like oversleep or not sleep at all. I'd, you know, overeat or just completely starve. I'd try and be the social butterfly, or I'd just completely cage in. Conversation felt weird. Conversation felt awkward to those who once upon a time were my everything. But again, I didn't, I was in denial. Like I was just like, look man, like Ali, don't overthink it. You're fine. Just keep doing whatever you need to. And then something happened which I feel like was my trigger point, which made the depression reach a completely different high. A few years back, I remember, let me take some water. I was in denial for so many years, thinking there's absolutely nothing wrong with me. What I was going through was nothing more than my imagination or me connecting dots that aren't meant to be connected. But a few years ago, something happened which was easily the most emotional point of my life. One day I get a call from home, and my father was diagnosed with cancer. And getting that call just, it changed everything. I was in London at the time. I remember I just left and I went to Devon, and I wanted to just be around my father. I wanted to be around my family. And at the time, we were expecting the worst. We didn't know what was going on. It was so abrupt and sudden. Anyone who has had a family member get cancer will know that it's an incredibly sensitive time. For me personally, my dad is my biggest inspiration. He is my hero. He's the hardest working man I know. And over the months that he then went on and did his chemotherapy and radiotherapy, to see him crippled by this condition, it totally shattered me. It totally broke me apart. And I had an office job at the time in London. I quit that job. I left London. I moved back with my parents. And for that entire summer, I was just there. Home to hospital, seeing my dad. He had lost so much weight. He couldn't eat. He could barely speak. It's weird when something like that happens. It changes all your priorities. You know, anything at that moment that matters doesn't anymore. Like, all you really want is just to see your dad get better. The good news is, my dad recovered. He fully got better, his cancer cured. But after that point, it definitely made me realize that, hey, Ali, there is something wrong with you. Because all those years before my father was diagnosed, I was feeling whatever I was feeling. And then after the situation of my dad, it just changed me as a person. And I remember I was having panic attacks. I would find it hard to breathe. My heartbeat would be erratic, and I just lost all motivation to do the most basic things in my life. Like, those who know me personally would, you know, I'd like to think they'd picture me as someone quite hardworking. But when depression hits you, there would be days where all I want to do is just stay in bed. You know, not because I'm lazy, but because it's so hard to just do a basic task like get up or speak to someone or, you know, eat something, or just speak on the phone, or interact with someone. All these little things that, you know, you'd think are just completely basic and anyone can do, become the hardest tasks in the world. I remember there was one night in particular, I woke up and I couldn't breathe. I was having one of my panic attacks. I was living alone at the time, and it was scary. When stuff like that happens, you know, you assume the worst. I thought I was having a heart attack. I was like, what is going on? And it slowly went away. But I think that was the transitional switch for me, to be like, okay, something is happening. I need to seek help. I Googled therapists in my area, and, you know, there was a whole bunch of them local, and I read their bios, I read their experiences, and I read their qualifications, and I basically wanted someone who, I don't know, I could just speak to and see if they could offer me any advice or assistance or help. And then I remember I found someone and I booked an appointment. And then I thought, what the hell am I doing? Like, Ali, you're doing therapy, you're seeking counseling, you're seeing a psychologist for what? Like, you're fine, dude. Again, the contradiction's kicking. So I remember leading up to the days of the appointment, I kept thinking of cancelling it. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I don't want to speak to someone about stuff I'm going through. This is so, just feels weird, you know? But then I think I was just like, hey, look, what have I actually got to lose? For all these years, you've clearly been going through something. It won't hurt just to see a professional and just to talk things out and see what happens. When I met my therapist, it was the first few minutes I was a bit uneasy, I was a bit nervous, but then for the next hour and a half, I had literally dumped all the intensities of my life to this stranger who I had just met for 5 minutes. And I had never done that in my life in that manner to anyone. The moment I did it, I felt this huge weight lifted off my shoulder. I cried to this person who, you know, I don't know, but, you know, I knew they were there to help me. And then I remember walking out of that door thinking, what did I do, you know? And then I kept doing therapy. I kept going back. And lo and behold, I was pretty soon diagnosed with clinical depression. You know, mental health, depression, these are like buzzwords that everyone hears, but for it to be attributed to you, it was a feeling of, whoa, okay, like, it was a mixed feeling. There was a part of me that was a little bit worried, like, oh my God, like, I suffer from a mental illness. But then there was another part of me that was like, hey, okay, Ali, like, finally you know what's going on. There's a name for what you're experiencing, and now you can seek help for this problem that you have. So in that sense, it gave me some comfort and ease to know that, okay, it is what it is. And I remember I kept doing counseling, kept doing therapy, and then it got to a point where I was like, okay, this is great, but it's still not going. Like, I'm still having panic attacks. I used to get chest pains and neck pains, and you know, I would still struggle to do my day-to-day basic activities. And I was like, I just can't seem to function, and I can't seem to operate. What can I do? And that's when we spoke about medication. And again, that topic. What? Medication? Like taking pills for mental health? Like, I was not used to these types of conversations. And what basically happened is I then spoke to my GP, and I was explaining everything. And after a long chat, they prescribed me with antidepressants. And I remember collecting the antidepressant tablets from the chemist and walking out of that room thinking, okay, this is not weird enough as it is that, I'm seeking therapy for depression, and now I've been given medicine to take to help with this. It just felt weird and odd, and this was definitely not my default setting at all. But, I was like, this is something that's been recommended by a qualified medical professional. This is something to help you get better, Ali. So take it. So I did. And hey, when I took that first antidepressant tablet, oh my God, like I still remember it. I forgot I could smile like that. I forgot I could be happy. It was so weird. It was almost like I took this tablet and something happened inside of me that allowed me to feel like the old me. And I was like, this is great. Like, what's going on? And, for a couple of months, I took my antidepressants and it made me feel better. But over time, the effects of medicine weren't the same. It didn't have that first time feel anymore. It definitely still helped me feel better, but the inner workings of my depression was still there. And it was then about controlling it, and it was then about trying to find other ways of potentially making it as easy as I can for myself, I'll be totally honest. I used to be one of those people that used to think mental health wasn't real. I used to think people complaining or speaking about things like depression were just having bad days, and they just need to get over it. They need to get a grip. And even though, as I'm saying this right now, I feel so disgusted that once upon a time I held such an ignorant view, because the only way I truly understood it is when I myself was diagnosed with it. I now see people react and respond to mental health the same way I did when I was ignorant towards it. Oh, mental health, mate, get over it. Man up, get a grip. It's nothing. You're having a bad day. And it kills me inside, because I'm like, hey man, I used to be you at one point. I used to think that. But now, because I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum, I'm telling those people, your ignorance could not be further from the truth. This is something that is destroying people. Mental health is something that's as real as any physical illness. Just because you can't see it, it does not mean it does not exist. To anyone watching this right now who knows someone who is going through some type of mental health problem, please do not cheapen their condition. Please do not try to make them feel worse than they already are. It's like, you know, you've broken your arm and someone goes up to you saying, nah, your arm's not broken, don't worry about it. Like, get over it, you're fine. But you're there like, dude, my arm's in 2 pieces, I'm bleeding, like, can't you see it? You know, one thing I've realized specifically in the Asian Muslim community is, man, mental health is non-existent. It has other definitions. The thought of even expressing something psychologically wrong with you, there are so many people that will question your spirituality. They will question whether you are possessed, anything but accepting the mere fact that maybe this person has an illness. I think, again, it bleeds out of ignorance. It bleeds out of lack of knowledge. People have told themselves that these issues are not real. These things are not to be taken seriously. Being spiritual and having mental health are not mutually exclusive things. Like, someone can be religious and still have an illness. Like, those things can coexist, and I feel like people really need to understand that. It's a big problem in our community. Like, these issues are very real, but when we deny the mere fact that they even exist, it intensifies the problem so much more. I'm someone who kind of bottles a lot of my emotions in, and it takes a lot for me to speak out about something quite personal and emotional to me. So I remember for all those years I never spoke to anyone, but it's only after I saw a therapist and my problems were now had a name, I then spoke to some of my closest friends. But here's where I'll be honest. I'm not gonna lie. Every single person I opened up to about my depression either made me feel awkward or worse than I already was. This is a conversation that doesn't get had often. You know, one of the things people say is, oh, if you're going through something, speak to someone, speak to someone. I did. And the problem is, I feel like everyone's talking about mental health, but no one knows how to have the conversation of mental health. I remember opening up about the problems and things I was feeling. And it was just very like, yeah, dude, like, don't worry about it, like, you'll get better. Or like, you know, what? You saw someone, why would you do that? Like, or, you know, the moment I'd even talk about medication, they'd lose it. Like, dude, stop. You know, you shouldn't be on pills. You're a happy guy. Don't worry about anything. Just like, just do you. And then, of course, there were other people who it's just like, I felt like I made them feel weird. It's like they go silent, or like, oh, I don't really know what to say, or okay, cool. I remember one friend, like who I was close to at the time. They didn't speak to me after I opened up, and that made me feel terrible. I'm like, wow, I felt close enough to you to say some of the most personal things to me, and you just walk out on me. So this is one thing I want to shed light on. I feel like if you are going through something you feel like is a mental health problem, speak to someone that either you know has been through it, or go to a professional. Like, hey, your friend that you play football with, or your friend that you go shopping with, or even the grown adult that you think can advise you on all these other parts of life. I feel like mental health is such a new and sensitive topic that a lot of the times the person might be well intended, but what they say doesn't actually make you feel better. It makes you feel worse. It makes you feel like, oh man, like maybe I shouldn't talk to anyone then. The best advice I can give to someone who feels like they are going through a mental health problem is to speak to your GP. That's the easiest thing you can do. Speak to your GP. Your GP is trained, will know what to do, will know who to recommend you to, will know if this is something that should be explored and further discussed. And lastly, what I'd say is find your escapism. Find your escapism. And for different people, that's going to be different things. For me, it was comedy. I loved having the ability to make people laugh, make people smile, be it via a screen or on stage. In that moment, nothing mattered. Everything went away. All my problems, all my stress, all my doubts, all my depression for that split moment. And the magic about that was, whilst I was helping others, I was also helping myself at the same time. So it's almost this therapeutic occupation where if you make someone else feel good, it makes you feel good. What I would urge people to do is find your escapism. That's going to be different things for different people. For some people that might be art, it might be music, it might be spirituality, it might be falling in love. There are so many things in life that change the way we feel, change the way we are, make us feel more alive. And if you don't know what that form of escapism is, taste everything, do everything, travel, read, talk to people, discover the world out there. And you don't have to let something like mental health define you. Being someone who's been in that spot, being someone who's literally for days on end, just all I want to do is just shut myself away from the world and forget everything I ever knew. You have to fight. You have to fight. Not anyone in particular, but yourself. I won't pretend like my depression is cured and I'm fully better. Of course not. There are days still where I want to be that person who just stays in bed and doesn't talk to anyone and doesn't want to do anything. But I've tasted the other side of the spectrum. I know that when I try and I feel things around me that make me feel slightly better, it's those moments that I need to focus on. My job is to make people laugh, and I'm often known as the happy guy that makes you smile. But I hope today it shows that even people on the outside that look completely fine and happy internally can fight a battle that you know nothing about. One of the most common responses I got from the people that I opened up to was, oh my God, but you're always so happy and you're always busting jokes and, you're the comedian, dude. How can you be depressed? But it's like, I hope me saying everything I've said today shows that it doesn't matter what the nature of your profession is. It doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter, how successful, famous, rich, or whatever someone is. Mental health can affect anyone. To anyone experiencing any type of emotion and stress and doubt and insecurity or intense feeling that they can't quite explain. I just want to be that mouthpiece that lets you know what you're going through is completely fine. It's completely normal. There's help available. You don't have to fight this alone. And I hope my words can comfort you in whatever capacity they can. And I hope the conversation of mental health is taken more seriously in my community and beyond. I really do hope for that.